World News, where we talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm here with our founder, Spooky Bill Moore. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
And
Wearing
Bill,
my FBI hat.
there you go.
Fabulously brilliant individual.
There you go. There you go. I don't know if I would say that about everybody I've known in the FBI, but I've seen I've had a lot of friends that were in the FBI over the years, and it's been interesting to see some of the ways that the FBI and their employees have gotten swindled by different things, or it really has been quite. I don't know if I should say amusing, but they sometimes felt kind of helpless to do anything about some of the stuff that they had done to like their retirement accounts and
Um,
other things where they've gotten swindled and things like that, even though they're in this position of power that you would expect a little bit more. But
yeah,
anyways, we got a few topics to get through today. One of
yeah.
the first ones I want to talk about is this is but for the U.S. here is what percentage of Americans have heard about the federal EV tax credits? And this one is kind of funny. I don't know why they decided to include this, but we're going to have a little fun with this one today. But they decided to do it by race and ethnicity. I thought this was kind of funny. So overall, 40% of people know nothing at all about EVs and related um, tax incentives. Now, when we're talking about these tax incentives, they're pretty significant. There's a number of vehicles that starting next year, instead of having to wait to get your tax return, the $7,500 is going to come right off the price at the dealer.
Yep.
And so you're going to get that tax credit. The dealer is going to get their money within, I think, 72 hours, the government says. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I hope so. And anyways, that'll stimulate EV sales. Now, obviously, we know as interest rates go up, that's not helping sales of the car industry at all. And the whole idea though of raising the interest rates is to slow sales, right? We're trying to reduce demand by increasing prices, but it's hurting the EV industry considerably.
Yeah.
And the EV industry is inherently weak outside of a couple of companies like Tesla that's really well funded. And now Lucid's gotten, with their arrangement with Saudi Arabia, they're pretty protected. And I think Rivian's pretty protected by Amazon. So I think, those companies for sure are in a good space, but you have others that are not in quite such a great space. But what I find really interesting about this is, so this gray area over here is what percentage of Americans know nothing about the EV incentives. And then all the way over here is people who consider themselves to know a great deal. Well, what's
Yeah.
funny is we've got whites, we've got blacks, we've got Hispanics, and then we have other. The other people seem to be very well informed compared to the rest of us. I find that quite fascinating. 11% well informed and only 32% know nothing,
So
which I thought,
what would be other aliens?
um, Asians, American Indians, the Inuit,
Oh, okay, sure, sure, sure,
you know,
sure.
you know, Pacific Islanders. I thought this was, you know, it was kind of an odd thing, I guess, to do a poll on. But I guess if you could do a poll on anything, that one was kind of
Well,
interesting.
yeah. Apart from the racial part of this thing, obviously the issue is the administration is not doing, or the media for that matter. Let's throw them in there too. Not doing
Mhm.
all that good a job on making people aware of these incentives that are available to them. Okay, there's a $42,000 electric car, but if you qualify, there's $7,500 off of that. So now you're talking a 33, $1,000 car, and that puts you down in the same category as a Camry or whatever. So
If you
they need to
qualify,
do a
that.
better job. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of things like income limits and things like that as to whether you qualify for some of these things. And, some of the more expensive EVs are hard to afford unless you're above those thresholds.
Yeah.
And so some of that is a little interesting because there are some challenges there. What is kind of nice about the numbers for next year is that you could qualify either in this year or next year. So you could, if you qualified in 23 or 24, you don't have to qualify in both. So you kind of have a pretty good idea of
Well,
whether,
again, this comes back to it. To some, there's people have sat around and in Washington or wherever these think tanks are that government think tanks are, and said, how do we make this as equitable as we possibly can? And let's put some. Do we want to provide $7,500 tax benefit to a family with a husband and wife earning $300,000 or $400,000 a year? They can afford it.
right.
They don't need the break.
No, I get that. I get that. It just seems, especially when I look around Omaha, when I see the people that I know that, buy the higher end electric cars, which that's most of what you see around here, because you don't see as many of the Fiats and Nissans and things like that.
They're not even
Um,
available for sale. So,
right. Well, and
well,
anyway,
Nissans are, but
yeah, but I'm just saying that you see a lot more of the Teslas, the Audis,
yeah,
and things like that, and they're a little bit less affordable. And only the Audis aren't eligible for the rebate, but the Teslas are. Some
yeah,
of them. Some of the Teslas are
yeah,
eligible. The Ys, the threes. There's now even the base model X is eligible for it. And of course you've got a lot of Fords that are eligible for it.
yeah.
So
What
that
what
helps too.
do what do you think this? What would you see as a solution? How do you get more people aware of this? You got the president, flying around and doing whistle stop, things, but you've got secretaries of energy and secretaries of transportation going around. But what else? What else could they do to make people aware of this?
I think some of this is on the auto industry itself. And as I've commented before, the US auto industry outside of you know, F- Ford, for the most part, hasn't liked the idea of making EVs attractive or really pushing them. And I think that they need to be bringing this up in more of their ads. And maybe that would be a target for the government is to even subsidize some of that advertising, if they really wanted to get into something there. Because I don't think most people understand how the EV rebates apply. And I think if they did, they'd be a lot more likely. And you've got a few
Yeah,
states like Colorado and California and New York that, on top of the federal, have pretty big state
yeah,
incentives too.
yeah,
And, it's a matter of doing that. Coincidentally, I'm trying to schedule, there's somebody we had when an article was published about them yesterday about a EV business, EV only auto sales out of Utah, and we're
yeah.
going to get. He's agreed to do an
Oh,
interview, so
gee, oh, excellent.
I'm going to have you on the interview with him.
Oh, that's
So
good.
I reached out to him. He's a professor out in Utah that also has an EV business,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
his side
think
gig.
yeah, I think it's going to be real. He'll be a real interesting
Yeah,
person to have talk about it. But that's part of it is how do you advertise this? I mean, when you look at car ads in the local market, everything is about, well, you could lease this, you know, um, Jeep Cherokee, whatever, for 299 a month, and it's like 6,000 miles a year, and they have these squirrely things. A lot of times they do with leases, but I think you need to see more of that incorporated in the advertising
yeah,
plays on these vehicles, incorporating that tax credit.
yeah. Well, part of this too is the fact that the gasoline powered vehicles, ICE vehicles, are the bread and butter of the industry still, with the exception, obviously, of Tesla, because all they sell are electric.
Hmm.
I saw there's an article where I think it was Ford. It loses something like nearly 40,000, supposedly $40,000 or somewhere in that range. For every one of the electric vehicles, presumably the F-150 Lightning, they lose that every vehicle they sell. So you can only lose so much money on a vehicle sale. What's interesting though, and I don't know whether people will remember this or not, but when the original Prius came out 20 some years ago, That was the same argument that Toyota was losing, in this case, $20,000. I guess if we take inflation into account, it's probably equivalent to what Ford is
Mhm.
supposedly losing on the Lightning or the Mustang. But Toyota was losing $20,000 on every Prius they sold.
Wow.
Um, but they, but hey, you can still get a Prius, and they've made a lot of money,
Yes.
selling those. So obviously, there's some point to where that line gets crossed, and they're going from negative to positive. And presumably, Ford will do, Ford and all the others will figure out how to do the same thing.
Yeah. What was also kind of interesting from this article by Axios was that Republican and Democratic respondents in the poll showed the same awareness, about 40% knowing nothing at all about the subsidies. So it
Yeah.
was kind of, um, irregardless.
It's a bipartisan. Hey, we have a bipartisan issue here of ignorance.
It's about time. Uh,
Or
you
lack, no,
know,
sorry, lack of awareness.
yes, you know, 10% of respondents will definitely choose an electric model for their next purchase or lease, while another 28% might. Now, this is US numbers,
Yeah.
okay? And 56% of Democrats say they will or might choose an EV compared to 19% of
Yeah.
Republicans. Now, obviously, a big difference here is Democrats tend to live in big coastal cities, and Republicans tend to live in the middle of the country
Yeah.
more. And so a little bit of it depends on kind of where you're at. And what's interesting, women are slightly less likely to plan EV purchases,
Yeah.
and we're slightly less aware of the credit than men, which, you know, uh, who knows where the reasoning might be in
Well,
that.
this is a major, significant technological transition.
Mhm,
It's a car, but there is such a gulf between the century-old system that we've all grown up with. I don't know of anybody that can remember, that's still alive, that remembers the horseless days, right? Or
mhm.
the days when everybody was riding in carriages, or horseback, or just walking. So we've all grown up with gas stations on every corner, and you get a new car every few years and things, and it's what we've grown up with. We're comfortable with. Now we're coming in here and we're saying, well, you can still have mobility, but it's mobility with a different twist to it, and some different things you need to think about. And that's it is a big transition. So I don't think it's obviously something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take, as we've been talking, take some education.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Well, let's get on to our next topic. Let's talk about there is the current administration's push to make changes, and we're putting in electric vehicle charging corridor that includes 425 national park sites across the country. And let's see here. There's an interactive tool, electric vehicle, charging map. Let's see here. Let me stop sharing that page and go to this page. And let's see. It's not real specific here. Oh, we have a national park here in Nebraska. Homestead National Historic
Homestead
Park
National, yeah. I think that's the only one we have, actually.
down by Beatrice. Well,
Yep.
that's
Yep. That was the
and
site of the very first homesteader.
really,
Yeah. Yep.
like the 640 acres of land kind of thing.
Yep. Number
Wow.
one. Numero uno.
It's really hard to fathom, being given 640 acres of land when you're on horseback and you got a wagon or whatever, and it's you and your wife and a couple kids out marching across the prairie and trying to, create a
Or
shelter.
two spinster sisters. I had there was an audio book that you can get on LibriVox
Mhm,
about two spinster sisters from, I think, Chicago, if my memory serves, who homesteaded up in the Dakotas,
mhm.
and it goes through all of the things. So apparently, some guy from back east came out claimed the land, built basically what you could get these sort of tar paper shacks that
Yeah.
you could put up. And he, didn't make it through his first year. He couldn't do it. So basically, they took over the claim, moved into the house, and then proceeded to to live a I didn't get all the way through. Unfortunately, didn't get too far into the book, but obviously you're out in the middle of nowhere. You've got no resources, and
Yeah.
at that point in time, you're still surrounded by Indians. That's
Right.
Lakota, that's Sioux country,
Right.
pacified, quote unquote, but still it's you know two women out there by themselves in the middle of nowhere, and it's a all day ride to get to the closest town. So
Hard to fathom, isn't it?
yeah.
In these days of modern conveniences. But anyways, as we look at this map, it's saying 400 some odd
Yeah, and that's only the beginning.
national
I think the,
parks.
the first one is Grand Canyon. They have Electrify America has set up six charging stations to the entrance of the Grand Canyon National Park. And obviously, there's a lot more. I think that probably going to go by visitor traffic, and that I would think would make Yellowstone not far behind, and Yosemite, and probably the Smokies, and on the East Coast, Arcadia. Those are some of the more frequented national parks, and then probably down from there. The ones that have the most traffic, the most visitors. Those are the ones you're going to focus on, and of course, Grand Canyon is, if not the top, it's pretty well near the top of the places that people visit in our park system.
So earlier we were talking about what percentage of Americans know about, the EV rebates. So I got an interesting question for you. How many EV charging stations do you think there are in the United States? And how many do you think the average person probably thinks there are in the United States?
We talking about public or private?
Public.
Public
Public.
public charging stations. I would imagine they probably think, I don't know, there's a few hundred around.
Right, right. And
And of
how
course,
many do you
it's
think it is?
closer. I think at this point, there are now more than there are gas stations, if memory serves. And that's somewhere about a quarter million.
Well,
Uh,
as of May of this year, there was 138,000 across the
okay.
United States. That's
Yeah.
a lot more than a few hundred. I see
Oh, yeah.
sometimes I see people post. I was looking at some article on Reddit. It's like, well, what if there was charging stations so you could go here? It's like you do realize people drive across the country in electric
Yeah.
cars now
There've been, there,
already, and
yeah, at least, what, a decade and a half.
so
Uh,
um, I have a tennis tournament in Arizona on Friday. Okay, and my guy with the BMW i3 is on that team. So he 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 left Omaha yesterday um, to start his journey to be there. So he's there by Friday because he has to stop every
well,
like
every
60
100 miles or
miles.
so.
Well, he's only got an 80-mile range, and he has a
Then
gas
he's
generator.
got the generator, which is a
Right.
one
Yeah.
gallon of fuel.
Yeah. I think he can actually get about 150 miles if he
Yeah,
had to.
yeah, you can, yeah.
And but it's really interesting just to kind of see what he does, and we get such a kick out of it. We've had people offer to let him borrow a gas car and different things just so he can
I
make the
got to,
trip.
we got to set us up a meeting. I got to meet this guy.
He's something else. Yeah. Um, but anyways, yeah, it's hilarious, but
I
it's good to see
admire his tenacity.
he's
Maybe that's
determined
not the
to
word, but
drive electric all the way to
yeah.
from
Well, it's
Nebraska to
not
Arizona.
entirely, it's hybrid part of the way, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's not burning a whole lot of gas. He
Yeah,
just basically stops every hour and sees what kind of interesting people he meets
yeah,
at things. And I've seen pictures where he's changing people's tires for them because that's where people decide to stop when their tire goes flat, or
oh, yeah.
it's just funny stuff that he ends up doing at the
Sounds like a fascinating guy. We should do an interview with him.
yeah, he's definitely different, but great tennis player. great tennis player.
Okay.
Um, and a lot of us that are good tennis players are pretty weird. So I just, I'll just, I'll just kind of leave it at that. Um, but Yeah, so Biden's goal for 2030 is for us to have 500,000 charging
Yeah.
stations in the United States. So that would be quadrupling what we're at right now. But there's really are a lot of charging stations
Yeah.
in the United States. So for our last topic today, we're going to discuss about we're losing money to climate change. Corporates push for fossil fuel phase out ahead of 2023. And
Right.
this is interesting. This group is led by Indian
Pretty significant.
conglomerate Mahindra.
Yeah. Pretty
And
significant group of companies.
yes,
130 of
yeah, Mahindra is huge in the battery industry and in car manufacturing
them. Right.
parts. They supply a lot of stuff to Tata and
And they're
other,
also, yeah, they're also into, I think Mahindra, I think, is into steel production.
probably, probably.
They own Jaguar. I think they're the ones that own Jaguar
Oh,
Land
I
Rover.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let me see. Your brands worth at least 1 billion, including Unilever, Danone,
Yeah. Big
Nestle,
Dutch company.
Bayer, Heineken, Hewlett Packard, Volvo, and IKEA.
Yeah.
And let me
Brands
see, the
we're
group,
all familiar with,
yeah, the
even here
groups
in America.
want a full phase out of unabated fossil fuels to have emissions this decade. Just so it could boost global gross domestic product by 4%. Now, I'm not sure if it comes through here and explains what would boost GDP. They want renewable electricity capacity to be tripled and the rate of deployment of energy efficiency measures to be doubled by 2030, so that energy could be completely decarbonized in the global north by 2035 and 2040 in the global south. Let's see. Mahindra told EcoBusiness in a statement that India has a bold target to achieve 50% energy from renewables by 2030.
Uh,
And portfolio companies in the renewable space look to play a role in this mission. Oh, Mahindra's worth $19 billion. I knew it was a big company.
yeah.
But anyways, I thought that's
Hey,
but it doesn't really explain why the GDP increase would occur, which would have been kind of nice.
well, I think, yeah, it would be. I think part of that, of course, has to do with their having to comply with, with the movement to do more green, but also with the money that's being lost, due to climate change. Resources costing more, their customers being impacted, particularly, companies like Mahindra that are, located primarily in Asia and Africa. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, that would have been nice to have them explain, a little bit more. And it could be that in their letter they do. I haven't had a chance to look at the letter, but
Yeah,
it
it'd
is
be nice to see a breakdown.
yeah, it is interesting because they're raising this because of the upcoming COP 28
Right.
in Dubai. I think Dubai or somewhere anyway on the Gulf.
Hmm.
Um, and that's being headed up by a guy, a country whose main source of income is from oil and gas. So
Right.
they're trying to encourage, hey guys, we seriously have to get off this. Oh, by the way, speaking of countries, oil and gas in the Middle East and all that, Saudi Arabia is setting up a ski resort in Saudi Arabia. Snow ski resort in Saudi Arabia.
Hmm.
Out
Well,
there.
well,
there's
I
there,
disappeared.
there's Yeah, there's a mountain there that I think is somewhere up around 5,000 feet, something like that. And they do have some, I think temperature fluctuates from like minus 17 C up to 20 or 30 C, something like that. So there is a colder period of time that they can make snow. They're not going to get snow, but they can make man-made snow there. And of course, my question is, where's the water come from? You know, where are you getting the water to make the snow? So
Well, I was listening to Elon Musk talk about this. He says desalinization is way cheaper than, or can be done way cheaper than people think, or how it's been done in the past. That there's really no shortage of water. It's a matter of whether people want to divert the resources in a way to not.
instead of having free water, fresh water, you're going to
Right.
have to have to invest something to
Yeah.
make that conversion. It's not going to be free. So
I mean, a lot of your countries in the Middle East are big in desalinization because they just don't have the
well, even in
groundwater for it.
California, you've got a lot of desalinization of their water going on there.
Hmm. Yeah, because Nestle gets all the free water.
Yeah. Well, that's one of my concerns about this whole hydrogen thing.
Hmm.
Is that if you're going to do green hydrogen, it needs to come from water, and and generally that has to be. You can do salt water, but then you got to do the extra step to desalinate it and so on. So the
It has.
question then becomes: is where's all that fresh water come from? We've
Well,
already.
my understanding is it requires distilled water. So, I mean, you have to take an extra step. So
You
it's not
still
just a
have to
matter
do
of
the
going to
extra
your garden
step.
hose and.
Exactly, because here, as you and I know, here in Papillion, our water is really mineralized.
Yes, it is.
It's it's pretty darn thick. You can't, if you got a nice shiny chrome bathroom fixture, and you let a little water drop on there, you're going to have a lot of mineralization.
Yeah. If we lived in Kentucky, we'd use it to make bourbon, but our water isn't Kentucky limestone
No,
water.
yeah.
No, it's not. Anyways,
Well, we've run the
but
gamut.
yes, we sure have. But anyways, good show today. Appreciate people watching. And
Thank you, everybody.
anyways, make sure to like and subscribe if you like our content. And we'll be back. What day is today? Today's Tuesday. I guess
Today's
you'll be back
Tuesday.
with me
I'm
on
back
Thursday.
Thursday. So.
All right.